Sonic Live, a story about live-action kids in a Sonic comic. You might wonder, since this is clearly non-canon, why am I even reading this? Well, I wanted to review all the issues, and believe it or not, while the main story isn't canon, the other backup stories are. For example, the Knuckles one. It's his encounter with a charlatan on his quest to save King Acorn. So I skipped this issue. I missed a canon part of the overall comic. So, might as well just get into this. The story starts with the waste of space wall of text. It's a waste of space because it just tells us stuff we already know. Sonic runs to Eggman's base, and Sally has a weird device on her head in a daze, with Eggman saying that she doesn't even know her own mind. Eggman then blasts him into another dimension instead of killing him for some reason. Or I guess maybe he thinks he killed him, but somehow didn't. And we get a really weird out-of-place panel of live-action kids having played a video game, and then we cut to Sonic stuck in a green void, unable to move. Eggman then throws Sally in a cage with the rest of her friends still in the daze, and judging by their naturally terrified reactions, I'm guessing the reason Eggman did this to her despite having nothing to gain from it is because it would freak out her friends. So he did this just to be a dick. It still feels really pointless, though. Then Sonic hears voices in the green void, and sees a strange image of a realistically drawn human boy and his female friend who are really confused, with the girl saying he must have the videotape on the other end. Desperate for a solution, Sonic pulls them both into the green void because somehow he psychically knows that this will help him escape, instead of just trapping two innocent children with him. Normally I'd be complaining about how this concept is too meta, Sonic being in a green void dimension that's somehow magically linked with a dimension similar to the real world, and using a random TV as a portal to it for no reason. I'd be complaining about how, since Sonic was sent to the green void from supposedly being vaporized, that this is implying the green void is the afterlife, or like the game over area, and Sonic's entire world, or at least his afterlife, is a portal to an inexplicable place. But the story is non-canon, or at the very least never going to be mentioned again, so I'm a lot more willing to just shrug it off. It's not like it's a really important story. Sonic says that because the kids are here with him, the energy surges have gotten stronger, creating a portal to Mobius. How would he know it was a portal leading to Mobius before he had even stepped in? It could be a portal to a world of sharks for all he knew. Also, Sonic saying the word coalescing? I guess Sonic's smarter than you think, because I wouldn't even expect him to know that word. Why doesn't he just say gathering? So is this how he came up with the plan? I guess the portal formed as a reaction to an increased amount of ore energy or life energy caused by more than just one life form being here. Because the chaos energy just decided to be merciful because there were too many trapped people, I guess. And the kids are just finding the whole situation really cool and enjoying themselves, instead of being realistically terrified at the prospect that they might never be able to go home again. Well, they are kids, so maybe they're just caught up in the moment and aren't thinking far enough ahead. Meanwhile, Tails and Rotor were let out of the cage, escorted by SWATbots, purely so that Eggman could intimidate them by showing them a missile he'll launch killer satellites into orbit with for killing the Freedom Fighters. Wait, if that's the only reason he's doing this, why not just take out a gun and shoot them? This is such an overly convoluted execution plan. He then tells them that Sally is in the rocket's lower level just because he doesn't think they'll be able to save her, underestimating them without Sonic around. Okay, why did he even put Sally there when he was putting her with them in the cage before? What is the point? What does he have to gain from that? Then Sonic and the kids jump out of the portal, and the kids naturally get grabbed by the SWATbots to be used as hostages, while not wondering if they've gone insane because I guess they're really young. Sonic defeats all the robots, not just with his speed, but also by being strong, lifting them over his shoulder and stuff, and then takes the kids with him to the control room because they're there anyways, so I'm guessing he thinks it'd be more dangerous to leave them behind. Apparently, they have to decipher the hieroglyphics and press the right switch. I guess that's sarcasm because I don't see any hieroglyphics. The launch sequence gets activated, with one kid warning Sonic that Eggman's woken up from seeing him through camera footage. And after Sonic says he loves that shirt with his face on it in a subtle display of his egoism, subtle, See, that's already better than Colors. At the very least, Sonic, as a character, is written a lot better than in the modern games in the story. But yeah, Eggman wonders if Sonic could come through a portal, and after Sonic presses the right switch on the control panel out of luck, a portal appears sucking the kids back into it. But instead of being a portal back to the live-action universe, it's just another part of Eggman's base. Huh? How? Eggman greets them all with an army of SWAT bots and shows them a giant statue of him is being built. It took this long for the boy to figure out this was a multiple universes situation? You'd think that would have been obvious. Then after Sonic gets thrown around by a robot that he should have destroyed at Sonic's speed, some more humans show up for some reason. I guess I haven't been paying enough attention as I'm really confused and lost. Okay, I honestly take a lot of issue with the fact that Eggman calls the humans those strange creatures. That is absolute bullshit, considering the blatant obvious fact that Eggman is human. A pretty weird looking human, but still a human. In fact, later on in the comic, it's explained that there are actually humans on Mobius. I think they're called Overlanders, and they have like 4 fingers, and sometimes they have 5. This makes sense as Eggman is a human, and he was born and raised on Mobius, I assume. So if he was the only human, that would raise a lot of questions about where he came from. I don't know, maybe he's just saying this because the humans are in a different, more realistic art style from him, so they don't look human enough for him. Also, I'm just going to assume that Eggman is wrong about assuming that the humans built a portal to Mobius on purpose, because they don't seem magical enough to be able to do that. And it seems obvious that they're just as confused as the audience by all the interdimensional traveling. Eggman says that they had built a portal in the art of creating entertainment. So he thinks they had made a portal by accident by creating Sonic games, I guess. How would he know that anyways? He hasn't gone to the live-action universe, so he wouldn't have seen the TV portal. He says that the TV must have a lot of power for him because it's a portal. It's easily making up for the fact that he lost the killer satellites. Meanwhile, this story gets a teensy bit too meta for my liking as Sonic is told that he's not real. At least he's really annoyed by it like you should be. What do you mean I'm not real? But it kind of makes up for it by explaining that instead of Sonic not being real, it's more that in the live-action universe, they had made Sonic games based on transmissions of Sonic received over a prototype device. I think that if these people hadn't been humans, and thus felt a little too realistic and meta, this whole interdimensional story wouldn't have been so controversial and felt so off. Again, there's nothing wrong with humans in Sonic. I mean, Eggman is a human, and he has to come from somewhere, so that would imply that Eggman doesn't belong in Sonic Universe. I don't know. At first they think Eggman showed up, but then we see that it was actually a woman wearing a Robotnik mask who was out promoting the latest game when a freak electrical storm created a link between dimensions through a prototype. Huh? So, it got struck by lightning? That's what happened? Also, they actually explained why the dimensions were linked. But why would a woman be playing Eggman when she wouldn't have the right voice for it? Does she have a voice modulator in the suit? The man explains that whoever runs the place they're in seized the prototype and connected it to their systems. How'd Eggman get his hands on a prototype in another universe anyways? Then the Robotniks we saw earlier are actually used in the story by them trying to shoot Eggman, and he characteristically encourages them to shoot Snively instead. Sonic does this stupid thing and saves them instead of just letting the world be rid of them. You know, this is not the only time that he's saved these guys. You'd think he would have learned his lesson by now. And then the blonde man says that if they can shut down the prototype, it'll pull the plug on the whole system. And they can do that by punching in the access code to a Sonic game to a Genesis controller-shaped control pad. And this took several seconds for me to finally figure out what exactly was going on here. Huh? Isn't the prototype supposed to be in the live-action world? Why are they able to do anything with it? Also, there's no explanation for why everyone went from Robotnik space to in the to in the green void dimension, as I didn't get to see them vaporized with a portal gun like Sonic was. The prototype's control pad being a Genesis controller at least makes sense in the games. Makes sense in the sense that Sonic games played with Genesis controllers were based off what was seen from the prototype. But what do they mean by access codes? I'm guessing what they mean by access codes is like the password codes for like cheating, in-game cheats in the classic games. And the boy finally justifies his presence by serving as a check of his gun, as his knowledge of all the access codes from playing Sonic games makes him a valuable asset here. This gives me respect for him for being useful saving the day, even if I still don't remember his name. By the way, did the internet exist at this point when the comic was being made? Because that's the only way I can figure out, that's the only way I can imagine that at this time, a kid who plays the classic Sonic games would have known about these passwords in the first place. Sonic puts in the codes as the kid says them, and the blonde man says that now he'll be able to reverse the process for a one-way ticket to send all the humans back home. Aw, I actually thought that group hug was pretty sweet. Then Sonic, Eggman, and Snively are sent back to Mobius, because fuck leaving the evil villains in the green void like it would make sense in-universe for them to do. And Sally's back to normal, because sadly we were cheated out of seeing Tails and Rotor save her, in favor of this story. And the story ends with one last very out-of-place live-action panel of two kids playing a Sonic game. And now for the good part of this issue. I was excited to see an actually good story when a story called The Substitute Freedom Fighters came along. But then the text blurb made it obvious that if the previous story is non-canon, then maybe this one has to be too, because the text blurb implies that it's all about explaining how the Freedom Fighters were captured at the start of Sonic Live and how the whole thing ended. I hope that's not the case, because this story actually turns out to be pretty good. Anyways, Rotor is working on a micro belt cam, which is for recording the actions of his friends in combat to relay them back to Knothole's computers. That way, they can review the footage to improve their teamwork. Then some alarms go off, and Rotor says that it looks like some SWAT bots are near Knothole's outside perimeter, so this is the perfect time to test the microcams. By the way, in this first page here, for some reason I thought that I was looking at like replicas or like dolls of the Freedom Fighters, so I got entirely the wrong impression about what the story would be like. Like I thought that Rotor had made some robot lookalikes of the Freedom Fighters, and that would fool Robotnik, and they would use them as clones to help out with the chores or something. I don't know why, it just kinda looked like these weren't the real Freedom Fighters in that panel. Sometime later, Larry the Unlucky Link shows up. Hey, he actually showed up again. I thought he was gonna be a wasted character because we'd never see him again. He was an interesting concept. I can't wait to see how he'll be used. He notices a monitor showing Eggman boasting, with it seeming to be a pre-recorded message or something because he doesn't seem to notice Larry, saying that no one can help him because Sonic is out of his hair. Larry Lynx naturally panics because whenever he's around something bad happens, and then after he wonders what he can do alone, he sees a training camp on the monitor and gets an idea. Then he actually teams up with Cyril the Eagle, who is coincidentally also from issue 2. I wonder if the caveman ancestors of the Freedom Fighters are going to show up next. I never thought I'd see Cyril again either. Coincidentally, the backup Freedom Fighters of Sally's were right there with Cyril, and they immediately agreed to try to free the Freedom Fighters, who we still don't know how they got captured so easily, by the way. Larry the Lynx says he'll take care of the guards, and immediately I start enjoying myself as he takes advantage of his bad luck in a brilliantly genre-savvy way I can't get enough of to get all the robots to destroy each other, missing with their laser attacks. I can't stress enough how much I love this concept. Bad luck is a fascinating superpower. Cyril is then made useful by flying ahead and signaling if the coast is clear, and successfully doing so without getting shot down or anything. The porcupine guy, Dylan, lockpicks open the door, and Cyril says to initiate Maneuver 12, which everyone has memorized to mean doing a specific battle strategy that gets Halen sent into the robots curled up into a ball. I really like this concept. So just like I was suspecting, this means that Cyril was with the substitute freedom fighters because he's basically become one of them now, making himself useful. I'm really loving this so far. I'd say Sonic Live is easily worth it because of the backup stories alone. I really hope that at least this story is canon. This is getting me to actually like and root for the backup freedom fighters, even though they still have no personalities, because at least every single one of them is doing something useful, and unique at that. There's more that could be said about issue 1 of the Sally miniseries, where only Sally got to do anything. They all spot Sonic and Robotnik from above, and Larry says the others are right up ahead, and they all destroy the SWAT bots with laser-shooting ray guns to free the freedom fighters. Oh, finally! Thank God they actually explained why there was a monitor to warn Larry. It was all because of Rotor's microcam serving as a Chekhov's gun. That's what the footage of Eggman was coming from. I don't know why I forgot about that. My only question now is why Larry just casually walked into the Freedom Fighter HQ in the first place, since they never really bothered to explain it. How are they all supposed to know that they won't be the target of his bad luck? It's still never explained that he can control who it affects. And most importantly, this whole story being resolved hinges on Larry just casually walking to the Freedom Fighters base for no reasons if he goes there all the time. But he doesn't. This is the second time we've ever seen him. So Larry even finding out what happened was a Deus Ex Machina. Anyways, Sally gives the backup Freedom Fighters watches to alert them all if their help is ever needed again. Why the hell has she waited until now to do this? And awesome! Sally gets the idea to make Larry a part of the substitute Freedom Fighters. I say awesome because his bad luck curse is so useful against their enemies and he works so well with them. I'd say that makes up for it. I don't like him being made the leader though. I don't really picture Larry as the leader. I don't know, I think Cyril would make a lot more sense. Then we finally get to the story I've been really waiting for. Knuckles' fight with the charlatan. We start off with a really weird looking monster fighting Knuckles after he ventured to a cottage in a remote part of the Great Forest. It's called a Devil Watcher. Knuckles anticlimactically defeats it by simply making a tree fall over in the next page, and adventures forwards into a place that didn't look so big on the outside, and it's full of pouncing lions. I don't know why, but when I first saw them, I assumed they were taxidermied, hunted animals until they pounced on Knuckles on the next page. Knuckles once again shows that he's smarter than you think by figuring out what to do based on the ancient Walkers' clues, saying that because he has to attack the most dominant one first and that'll make the other one fall from a spell, he'll attack the one that's closest to him, which indeed is the most dominant. And then he attacks some more enemies, like a giant muscle-bound human. See, humans do exist at this point in the comic. Knuckles gets a smart idea to at the very least try to give the charlatan a chance by simply telling him about his noble mission. And it works. All of the illusions he was fighting disappeared. Not sure how he got the idea from those hints though. Those hints just told him about the charlatan, enchantress, and paladin's existence. I guess because of the word fairness? I'm guessing there's a small time skip here because now the charlatan's talking as if he knows all about the ancient walkers heading into him, when all Knuckles said is that he's looking for King Acorn's sword, and based on that alone, why would he ever believe he's going to use it for good? I hate how confusing and riddle-like the charlatan's first text bubble is. What audience? Knuckles didn't have an audience, in universe anyways. So, is it that the charlatan saw a psychic vision of Knuckles coming, and that's how he knows? But then why did he even bother with those illusions at all? Wouldn't he have known that Knuckles was a good guy? Anyways, the charlatan, who I assume was only doing all this because he's paranoid and assumed Knuckles was a threat to him at first, decides he has to help Knuckles because he's learned a secret, that he just makes illusions. Even though, one, it was the charlatan's choice to reveal that they were all illusions, wasn't it? And most importantly, if they were illusions, how the hell didn't Knuckles' fists go right through them like they were holograms instead of physically colliding with them with perfect feedback? That's a pretty good illusion then. Like, if we had virtual reality video games, we'd still have a lack of physical feedback problem taking us out of it. If an illusion is tangible, that kind of disqualifies it from being called an illusion. Unless this was all in Knuckles' head rather than monsters actually existing in the room fighting him. That would actually make a lot more sense. Knuckles says that the charlatan gave himself away when he used nothing but children's boogie monsters, which I guess even the people of Angel Island are familiar with because Knuckles actually recognized them as such. The charlatan says that in his youth, he was using his powers to serve the king. Why did he stop? And it's never explained. It just sucks because, you know, if you were there at the time that Robotnik tried to take over, you probably could have stopped him. But instead, he selfishly decided to quit before that. He tells Knuckles that he might receive guidance from someone in the Land of Dark, if he can even locate that realm. So even he doesn't know where it is, and could just give him a vague hint. I love Knuckles' line here. You don't mean you don't know where it is? Great, just great. It's so relatable. The charlatan says that if he sees King Acorn again, he should tell him that Merlin Prower wishes him well. Hold on. First I was distracted by the Merlin part, thinking, yeah, no kidding, he's a wizard. So let's give him the laziest, most cliched wizard name imaginable. Couldn't have called him Max or Justin or something. But then I noticed something intriguing. Prower? Prower? That's Tails' last name. Awesome! Tails is a kitsune. He has shown magical potential. And now we've got him related to a full-out wizard. Makes perfect sense considering his Japanese kitsune origin. Come to think of it, from this final panel, it does look like he has the head of a fox. And you know, this does make sense because the multi-tailed fox, the kitsune, in Japanese mythology, is a magical fox who is known for being able to create illusions. And if the charlatan doesn't have a second tail, well, first off, he's wearing a huge cloak, so maybe we just can't see the tail because it's hidden under a cloak. Maybe he even feels ashamed of it. And second, maybe he's still got his powers from one of his kitsune parents. In fact, it is stated that the child of a kitsune who isn't kitsune itself can still have powers. That half-breeds can still have powers. The first story, the most infamous, was written by Ken Penders. And I was desperate for the story to end the whole time, but honestly, if the story had just involved Mobians from another dimension instead of humans, like alien squid people or something, and had no live-action panels, I don't think it would have been that bad. The concept of a dimension basing video games off their knowledge of Sonic the Hedgehog isn't doomed from the start. But because it stars humans, and humans in a realistic art style at that, it opens up the floodgates to the whole story feeling off-putting because it feels too meta. It's a bit too close to home with us being expected to believe the other dimension is the real world. And the kids being humans and Sonic fans makes the story feel like Penders wrote self-insert fanfiction for his kids. And I don't mean that in a mean way, per se. I'm sure he was just doing it to make them happy, to try to be a good dad. But still, it feels off-putting and out of place. But the thing is, this whole story is non-canon. So while it is difficult to follow at times, and I hated how Eggman called the other humans strange creatures, ultimately making a big deal out of it is worthless because it's not even canon in the first place. It's a shame that the first story exists, because it ruined the reputation of the issue in general, which is honestly 2/3 great. I love both of the backup stories. I honestly think the issue is worth it for them alone. The substitute Freedom Fighter story is written by a new writer, Rich Kolowski, or Rich Kolslowski. Whatever, Rich. And it was so great getting to see Sally's trainees being useful again, and best of all, Larry the Lynx with his fascinating bad luck superpower back, and teaming up with Cyril because of his flight abilities. Part of what made this great, aside from the use of the microcam to Chekhov's gun explaining why Larry knew what happened, part of what I love about it is that all of the characters are useful. Even the ones who don't get as much of a focus, like Penelope, Green Guy, and Hamlin, I can at least say or assume that they're helping by using laser blasters to destroy robots, since we see that happening. My only real problems with this are that, one, we never get to actually see why the Freedom Fighters lost the battle with Sonic on their side. And most importantly, the whole story being resolved hinges on Larry casually going into the Freedom Fighters base as if he does that every day. Well, this is only the second time we've ever seen him, so he was a Deus Ex Machina. And the third story by Kent Taylor started out pretty basic with nothing really to it. Just Knuckles thinking he's fighting a bunch of monsters surrounded by a charlatan and figuring out from past clues how to beat them. But the minute it was made obvious that this wizard is related to Tails, a Kitsune, that made it awesome. I just wish Tails could only develop his own powers more instead of stubbornly only ending up as a gadgeteer genius like Rotor already is, and nothing else. There's no reason he can't be both a wizard and an inventor, other than the meta reason that he'd be overpowered. But this is a world where Nicole exists, so the argument against overpowered characters because they're overpowered is pretty stupid. I know Tails is a gadgeteer genius in most continuity, so I can understand why they went with that for consistency with the games. But wouldn't it have been more interesting if, for the sake of the comics having a more unique identity, Tails went down the magician path instead? They've already got Rotor for the engineer role. At least then he'd be doing something unique to him. Besides, we've got like Amy being a completely different type of character in the Fleetway comic, with her having long hair and a crossbow, and not really being into Sonic. I mean, like, it's not completely out of the ordinary. It's frustrating to see so much wasted potential. If Tails won't bother to get really good at his innate powers like his relative, then why even make them related? Why even bring it up? The point is, 2/3 of Sonic Live were actually pretty great. It's a shame that the first story is so off-putting to the point where most people will tell you, don't read this issue, because it's really not that bad. Way better than issues 39 and 40. Next up is issue 44.